Hi everyone, I'm Paul with MadCap Software, and in this video, I'm going to explain checklists in Flare Online to you. Checklists, that's one of my favorite features in Flare Online because I'm a typical tech writer. I like to-do lists. I like to keep track of all the things that I'm doing. And this is especially important when I talk about keeping track of what I'm doing in a Flare project. So there might be a particular release where I'm having to do a lot of things, maybe write about a certain feature, and there's some topics that are affected, maybe some topics that are going to be new, and I need to make sure I do this, all these things for each of those topics. And this is a great way to tie in to those project files. That's one way you can use checklists. You can also just create generic checklists. And this is a big deal for me because before checklists in Flare Online, there wasn't a great way for me to kind of tie in automatically my Flare project files. And so I would use a spreadsheet, and it was real rinky-dink and just manual and a pain. And so now I use checklists in Flare Online all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through the steps. I'm going to show you how to create these project file checklists that I just talked about. And then I'll show you how to create generic checklists and why you might want to use those. And then I'm also going to show you how to create checklist templates because you might have a certain number of columns or rows, and it's the same for a lot of checklists that you create. Don't want to have to redo that work, so you can create templates, and I'm going to show you that. And along the way, I will also kind of take you into our license, show you our actual checklists, because people are always asking me when I do presentations on this. So what are the things you keep track of? So I'm going to show you that. All right, so let's get started, and I'll begin by showing you how to create project file checklists. Okay, so here we are in a Flare Online license, and this one is called FictionSoft. And so I just kind of use this for demos and just showing people things. This isn't our actual license where we actually have our regular projects and checklists and stuff. But I am going to demo this for you and show you how it's done. Now, the first thing when you want to work with checklists is you got to make sure you have permission. So I'm going to come up to my avatar, click on that, go to permissions, and you're looking for this guy right here, manage checklist. Just make sure you have that selected, which I do. So I'm going to cancel out of there. Now I'm going to go into projects. And so the checklists are kind of tied into whatever projects that you have. So you need to select a project first. I'm going to come down here and select this San Diego project right there. And then once you're in that projects page, you get all these tabs across the top, and you want to look for checklists and select that. I do have one checklist in here that I created previously. It's called My Checklist. And this thing also shows you that it's 0% done. I haven't completed any of the items in that checklist. Well, I'm going to show you how to create a brand new one, and that is to come up here and click this plus button, and this wizard opens up. So let's say that I'm working on a feature. I'm just going to say widgets feature. All right, so I know that that checklist is kind of tied to this. Now, I do want this to be a project files kind of checklist as opposed to a generic checklist. So I'm going to leave this one like this. You also get this template field down here. And if you create a template, so a template is basically just kind of the skeleton of a checklist. So it already has certain information filled in, and you can just leverage that by selecting that checklist. And you can see I've got three down here, one called just a real generic one called My Checklist template that I created earlier. I also have a to-do checklist in here, and the intention of this one, that is a generic checklist intended to just kind of be a to-do list, maybe for a release. I need to make sure I do all these things between the last release and this next release. And then I created this one and I named it topics. And so this one I know I'm keeping track of topics in a project. And so that is a project files checklist because I'm tapping in to those project files here in this San Diego project. So I could select that. I don't have to select one. If I didn't select one and I just kind of went through this wizard, well, I'm going to have whatever columns and rows I provide it with as I go through this wizard. But what usually happens is when I create a topic checklist, I want to keep track of the same stuff. And so I rely on a template. Now, in this case, I'm just going to leave this blank because I'm going to get to templates later in this video. I'm going to take you through and show you how to set up these things, the columns and rows. Now, branch. In this particular project, I've got four branches. One is the master, and if you're not using branches, you are always going to be in the master branch. There's just one branch called master. But you can work with branches, and as of the recording of this video, you need to create them in Flare Desktop, not in Flare Online. That might change over time, where you can create them in Flare Online. But for now, that's where you create them and kind of do some of the management for these branches. If you're not sure what branching is, I highly recommend that you look into it and just kind of grasp and just kind of embrace it because it is really, really useful for continuous parallel development, meaning that you can be working on one thing for a release in one branch and then another thing in a different branch. And so you're not kind of crossing streams and colliding with that. And so then you just kind of put things out or merge them as they're finished, as they're ready, and they're definitely going to be in a release. I actually created some videos on branching. If you go to the MadCap software website and you look for my source control videos, within that series, you're going to see some videos on branching. And so I would encourage you to look at those. Now, that's done from the perspective of Flare Desktop, but the principles are the same, and you'll understand what these branches mean. And so you can, in various places in Flare Online, you can select branches, you can switch branches. And so this is one of those places. So I usually encourage people when they're creating a checklist, what you're probably going to want to do is not select the master branch because the master represents, hey, this is all published stuff. That's the last time we published our live output. Well, the way that project development works is yeah, you put out a release, but then you start again and you're writing more content. And that stuff usually goes into feature branches. And so I created a couple of ones, just generically named them feature one and feature two, but they could be named anything. And so I'm working on a particular feature and I want to tie this checklist to that because the checklist is usually for work that's in development. You're not done with it yet. So I'm going to select feature two. I can provide a description here. You don't have to, this is optional, but I'm just going to say this is my checklist for feature two. Now I click next. Columns. So you think about what kind of checklist this is. What are the columns that you want to have across the top? Well, I'm keeping track of my progress in these topics in this case. So I might want to type a column called edit. I want to make sure I'm done editing. I can press enter like that and it adds it down below. Or let's add another one. Let's say add to TOC. I want to make sure that that topic is added to a TOC. So I can press enter, I can click this plus button, and that adds it down here. Maybe another thing is, review from a subject matter expert. All right, so that could be another one in there. Maybe you want to get the thing translated into another language. There's another one right there. And you also have these arrows down here, so you can change the order. So right now, the way these are arranged, edit would be on the far left, that far left column, and then next would be add to TOC, review from SME, and then translated. And maybe I decide I want review from SME to be last. Well, I can click the down arrow and now it's going to be last. I could also delete any of these columns if I decide I no longer want them. Let's say I'm done with that and we'll click next. Now, because I said on the first screen that I wanted this to be a project files checklist, what it's doing is it's looking at all of the files in that project that have been committed. If things are in progress, those edits aren't going to appear in, in the checklist. So if I've added a new topic, but I haven't committed it yet, it's not going to show up in here. All right, so by default, it selects everything, and you probably don't want everything in your checklist. I'm going to deselect this main project file here, this FLPRJ, the git ignore file, and I probably am going to deselect my project. If you click the down arrow, you're going to expand it and see, what's selected and deselected. And I deselected up at the top level, so everything below it is deselected. And I probably don't want anything in that project folder to be included in my checklist. It's just about topics for me. So I'm going to expand this and I look, okay, so what are the files, the topics that are affected by this? And so, all right, I've got all these kind of ancillary files here in this resources folder and maybe subfolders. I don't want those. Print only topics. Maybe I want, maybe this resources topic's going to be affected, but not the title page. So I can do that and come down here and I've got all these topics down here and I could deselect or select any of them that I want. So these are the things that are going to show up in that checklist. So I click next. And this is a summary of everything that I've told it in this wizard. And you say create checklist. So it adds it. So there it is, widgets feature, and it opens over here on the right. And you get this graphic up here at the top. So it just changes automatically as you start clicking things down below. And you can actually click this and go to another view, another graphic right there and another one right there. And so it's going to give you information about what you've done or haven't done in this checklist as you go along. Okay, so you come down here, you can see my columns, edit, add to TOC, translated, review from SME. You can also add notes to the right of these things right here. So it's starting out at the very top, content, the content folder, and everything is under that. So I had that print only subfolder, and I can open that, and there's that resources topic. And I could say, well, what have I done in here? I can click that little circle, and each time I click it, it's going to advance to a different state. What are the states? Well, there's to do, which is an empty circle, in progress, which is partially filled, complete, blue, check mark, or not applicable. And so maybe on this one, I have finished editing it. I can click this one more time and it cycles back through. Add to TOC, maybe I've done that too. So in this case, instead of clicking the circle button, I'm going to click this down arrow and select complete. So I can just skip right to that status. Maybe translated, I've sent it away and it's in progress. So I'm just going to click that and we'll leave this one to do. All right, so now I want to go back. I'm going to use these breadcrumbs right here and go back to content. All right, so there are these other topics and they're all on the same level. So they're just kind of flatly listed here. And maybe I start going through and clicking these. This one's in progress and that thing is in progress. And I can add a note, maybe like waiting for image. I need to add an image into this. So any notes that I need to be aware of to finish off that topic. And you just kind of go through here and select these things. Now, if you have a whole bunch of topics or items here in these rows and you want to give them the same status, what you can do is click the little series of dots right here and maybe all of these translated, maybe that's all in progress. So I can click in progress and it's going to warn me that, hey, everything is going to be in that column is going to be marked in progress. And I say, okay, proceed. And so it does. All these items right here, you can see are in progress. So you just kind of go through that. And if you end up with a whole bunch of items, right now it's set to 25 items per page. I could change it. I could show a whole bunch up to 200. But let's say that I keep it at 25 and I go beyond that. Well, then there are pages and I can navigate to more pages as I go along. You can see this chart has changed as I clicked on things. So you can see I'm 15% done and this shows 15% done here on the left. So it's nice, a bird's eye view here. If you don't have a checklist open, you can see how far you are in that. If you don't want to see the charts, you can also hide them like that. show or hide. Okay, so that is really the basics of creating and working on a checklist in Flare Online, and I just go through this until the thing is 100% done. I use it usually for these project file checklists for features that I'm writing for Flare Online or Flare Desktop or other product documentation. So just use it as it makes sense to you, and you might want to go beyond topics. You might want to keep track of resource files like your images and snippets and things like that. It's all up to you. But that is how you do a project files checklist. Before we end, though, I did want to show you in our actual license here some of the checklists that we have. And you can see over here on the left, we've got several. And the way that we do this is we usually start with this abbreviation here. FD means Flare Desktop, FO means Flare Online. But I did create this little test one down here called Test Task Enhancements. And some of these are generic checklists, like the post-release and the release checklists and the videos checklist. But some of these are feature, like this FOC name one here and this one that I created here. So I'm going to show you what one of our checklists might look like. Now I just created this one, 0% done. I open it and I'm going to hide the chart so we can see more of this down here and click this. And so I just selected some different folders and files in here that might have topics that are related to this feature and I need to go through. So this is the part that people sometimes ask me about. What are the things you keep track of? Well, I have this first thing up here called edit. We also work with meta tags, and so I make sure that things have meta tags, alt tags. Do they require an index keyword if we're going to have it in an index, or it helps with search right there, search filter concept. So you can take a screenshot of this, and if you wanted to kind of give you ideas for what you might want to keep in, or create in your own project or topic checklists in here. Banner, we sometimes have banners at the top of topics. Did I go through spell check? Did I run it through text analysis? Did I add it to a TOC? Did I create micro content for it? Did I put a CSH ID on it? Has it been reviewed? So those are the main things that we do for the topics. And sometimes we might go through a release and something is not applicable. And so for that particular checklist, I might go in and edit it. And I might say, well, for this particular checklist, I'm not concerned, let's say, about the index. So I'm going to delete that, save it, and so instead of going through and putting NA status on all those things, it just removes that column. Doesn't affect the template. It's just for this checklist that I did that. So that's what one of our actual checklists might look like. All right, now let's look at creating a generic checklist. So as I mentioned, what I often use a generic checklist for is kind of a release to-do list, all the things I need to do for a particular release. So I'm going to click this to create a new checklist, and I am going to say maybe release to do. So instead of type project files, I want type generic list. And again, I could select a template. I do have a to-do template in here, but we're going to wait and look at that soon. I'm going to leave my description empty here because I don't need to put something in there. I'm going to go to columns. And so what do I want across the top? Maybe I want to put my name, and maybe in another column, I want to put another author's name, and so we're responsible for different things during that release. We could do it that way and then click next and then row. What do we need to do? So various things you might do in a release generic checklist, change version number, maybe in variable or something. You've got that. You need to change the GUID for your search stuff. You might need to run analytics, all different kinds of things. So I've just got three things in here, and I could add notes for each one of these that are specific. Do this in variable set. Anything that anybody working in this checklist might need to know. If the name of that column just needs further explanation. So I'm going to click next. So now I have my columns. I only have two columns. I only have three rows. And this is just a summary of everything. And we'll click create checklist and it adds it. So this is a very simple one. As opposed to the project files one, which has the breadcrumbs where you need to navigate back and forth and up and down. This is just very simple. It's just columns and rows. And so you do the same thing that you would do in the other type of checklist. As you are doing things, you click them off like that. And each person in this case could get in here and click off their things as you kind of work toward the completion of this. So very simple and straightforward. Let's go back in here into our actual MadCap license and let's take a look at a generic checklist. So I've got these release checklists. And so this is what we might do for a Flare Online release and a slightly different one for a Flare desktop release right there, and then post-release stuff. So there's what you're doing. What we do is we create them for, all right, you're starting out a brand new release. What are the things you need to do? And these are the things that we've listed in here. And then once you're done with the release, what do you do post-release? So you can see some of the things that we do: updating the version number, changing sitemap, updating system requirements nodes, fixing bugs, all kinds of stuff. So again, if you want to do screenshots and see what we're doing, you can. So all of this and some of it at first glance might not make a lot of sense to you. It does to me. Sometimes we'll put notes over here just to remind ourselves of what it is. And in this case, we're showing one of 25 of 31. So I need to go to the next page to see the last bit. So lots and lots of things that we're keeping track of in here. And then the post-release checklist for FD might go into here. And you can see there's things like, all right, we need to create a new branch. We need to complete the videos checklist. We need to clear the release and videos checklist so that we can, use them again for the next release. These are the things that we do in a post-release. And then I also have videos checklists. And in this particular one, I just have like a what's new video in here, but I might have several videos that I do for a release. And you can see the different things that I'm doing. I'm keeping track of when I'm doing a video, outline, record and upload it, add it, the title on YouTube, all these things that I'm doing right there. Some of this is integration into our Flare project. So I get things, I use meta tags and micro content to do this. But there's a lot of things to do for a video. It's not just record the video and you're done. Several things. So I use generic checklists for that. And that might give you some ideas for your own generic checklists. The last thing we want to go through in this video has to do with checklist templates, because you might get some work done in a checklist, setting it up, rows, columns, and you think, man, I don't want to do this every time I have to do maybe a new release checklist or a new feature topic checklist, and I just want to reuse the same stuff. So you can do that in a couple of ways. Number one is you can click on this button right up here, Template Manager, and you can see I've already got some templates in here. This one's called My Checklist Template, just a real simple one that I set up to demo. One called To Do, and as I click on each one, this stuff changes over here on the right, and a topics checklist. So for example, my topics checklist, it's just the name of the template is called topics. I could name it anything. I wanted to make sure that this field is selected, project files, and I then need to provide the columns. So these are all the things I want to make sure that I track in my topics as I'm going along. Now, the to-do one is a generic checklist. So in this one, go back to settings, there's my name. It's a generic checklist and there's a description. In this case, I have both columns and rows. The other one didn't have rows because it's a project files checklist. So the project files are going to be different for each checklist. So you don't provide those in your template, but a generic one you do. So in this case, there's a couple of column names. There's some rows that are set up. All right. And this one is also a generic checklist right in there. So the way that you would create one in here is you would say add a new template. And I'm just going to call this brand new template. And do I want it to be project files or do I want it to be generic? All right, let's say project files. I'm not going to provide a description in here. And let's go here and add a column. I'm just going to say column one and column two because I don't want to think of anything else. And let's do next. All right, so then it's going to create my checklist and it's in there. So I can always open up that template manager and I can edit this anytime if I think, oh, there are some more columns that I want, or I want to change the names of these columns, or whatever I want to do. You just set them in there. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it is if you've already created a checklist and you don't want to redo that work and you just found out about templates. So maybe like this widgets feature one, this generic checklist, or that's a project files checklist. This is a generic checklist. Maybe this generic checklist, you want to create a template for this. So what you can do is come up here, see this avatar for this. You can click on that. And this is another way to edit a checklist. So you get to see the graphics at the top and you can go in and change what the name of it is or anything. There are the columns, the rows, all this information in here. So what you do is you think, okay, this checklist is a pretty good representation of what I might do time and time again. So I'm going to save that as a template instead of going into the template manager. And it just populates these things for you. It says release to do. And so maybe I want to add the word template or change the name of this in some way because this is not the name of the checklist. It's just the name of the template. And click next. And there it already has my columns. There it already has my rows. I don't have to put them in. Next, create template. So now I can cancel out of this. And if I go back up to my template manager, there it is. There's my release to do template, the one I just created. All right. So now if I wanted to create a brand new checklist before, what I showed you in this video is just going through the wizard and supplying the rows and columns as we went. Well, now I'm going to create a new checklist and the first thing I'm going to do is give it a name. And let's say this is a feature checklist. So I'm going to say widgets new again. All right, that's the name of the checklist. And I'm going to come down here to template. And if I select topics, that is that project files checklist that keeps track of topics, the progress in topics. If I were to select a generic one, like the release to do, it is going to override this stuff. And you can see that type change to generic list. And all of these tabs in here, columns and rows, were also populated. So I'm going to go back to this one, the topics one. Yes, I'm going to overwrite that. So it is a project files. It's using this topics template. I am going to go select maybe this branch in here, leave my description blank. It's got 4 columns and I'm using project files. So come into here. Don't have to supply all this because I'm using the template. Come into here, just going to go in and select, deselect, and maybe select a few things and click next and create checklist. So there's my brand new checklist based on the template that I already had. So there you go. That's what I know about checklists. I love them. I use them all the time. So I would encourage you to go in and just start playing with it, testing, and set up your own templates, and off you go. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.